Hey, Luke, lovely to catch up with you. It's been a little while since we actually caught up in person back in March, I guess, which is a long time, longest in the last 6 years, I guess.
Yeah.
I welcome everybody to flinderTalks, an opportunity for Luke and I to share kind of what's going on in Flinder, some of the lessons that we've experienced over time, some of the way we do things. And right now, great opportunity to be talking about what's going on in the kind of the pandemic time and how we're coping as a firm and maybe how other businesses can learn from that. So Luke, crazy times at the moment. Obviously, we've gone past the really kind of huge panic of what businesses were experiencing right at the beginning, the kind of the great unknown. So I think that's kind of been covered by a lot of other channels and outlets. But kind of maybe give us an insight as to how we've been coping like more recently, and then I think later on in this session we'll get into kind of what does the outlook look like for us as Flinders. So I guess, yeah, first question to you. After, back in March, we had the best month ever in Flinder history in our kind of short 3.5 years. We were tracking way ahead of budget, which was an aggressive budget anyway. In April, probably a bit back down to earth in terms of kind of, revenue, in terms of kind of, new prospects and that sort of stuff. But one of the biggest things I think from a people business is the people. Yeah. So maybe you can tackle it in your capacity as kind of, chief delivery officer and essentially kind of chief operating officer. What's it meant to us, and how have we cope with it from the people side of things?
Yeah, and I think the first thing to say that the fact we're having to do this over Zoom, it's relatively easy for us to actually do this, and I think it'll become kind of almost second nature to interacting with each other, with the team, with clients over Zoom, and just shows how important technology is. And we are very, very tech focused firm already. So actually, I think the transition for us was relatively easy. I think kind of almost break it up into two different parts, in the sense of the immediate impact of the change of working remotely, not being with the team, to then actually the bit more of like the comfort, the mental well-being side of it as well. So the first few weeks, it's probably really nice for the team not having to do any travel, having to be able to just kind of knuckle down and get through their work, perhaps without as many distractions. You kind of almost then go full circle to, you go a bit stir crazy, stuck in your, like, so luckily I've got a good office space here at home. Some of the team don't have that sort of luxury. They're either sat in their bedrooms, coffee tables in their living room, which is really tough. And just the human interaction to almost, I'm at the point now, I'm just looking at kind of a calendar on the wall there, but we're kind of 15, 16 weeks into it. And it's almost become second nature now. I'm used to my day being at home and how I break it up. I could do a lot better at kind of how I separate home from work, because it kind of merges into one very easily. But there are different ways we can do that, and we're also encouraging the team to do that.
So maybe picking up on that point specifically, yeah. So everybody's different. Everybody has a different way of working. Everybody starts the working day at a different time, finishes at a different time. How do you? And obviously, I know the answer to this, right? But for the listeners and the watchers, how do you switch off between work and personal life? And how have we encouraged the team to do that as well?
Yeah, so I think the general point is flexibility. It's what suits. I tend to be online kind of later than you are, but you're certainly online a lot earlier than I will be in a day. But that hasn't changed from because of lockdown. I think kind of people's habits will naturally change slightly because of the commute, not traveling, but just being flexible. So it goes kind of for the team that what suits them really, and the flexibility is even greater at the moment. Me personally, my kind of main break really is special constable stuff I do. There's only so much you can do whilst on lockdown. I'm kind of lucky that I can almost go out and contribute in that way, which is a good reason for me to get out and break lockdown, although I'm going out for a legitimate reason. So yeah, I have that kind of a bit of escape. I know you're really into your cycling, which I'm always a bit jealous actually when I see you taking those pictures and you're out in kind of the fresh air, because I'm sat here looking out my office window and it's raining and miserable. So I'm not jealous that's the case.
Yeah, so that is, and again, it's what works for you. You're really into kind of contributing to society with your special constable duties. I kind of the way I break my day up is it might get to 6, 7 o'clock, and I'll actually I want to take advantage, or even earlier actually, want to take advantage of the weather. blast out on the bike for an hour or so. I'm 60 seconds from the country lanes, clears the cobwebs. Actually, it gives me great time I listen to a lot of audiobooks when I cycle. It gives me a great break from the kind of what I was doing, lets me think a bit more creatively with what I'm listening to. And actually getting back, I can either then go into the evening, have a meal, and do whatever else in the evening, or actually sometimes then just get back into it as well, because I feel I've had a break. And I think that's what works for you and I. And I think one thing we've been really conscious of is to try and instill some sort of routine in the team, or rather not instill, but I think probably the word is help them reflect on what works for them, and get something that gives them a break. Because I think it's so easy, if you are sat in your living room, you are sat in your bedroom working, that actually the days just roll into each other, and you've got no personal time, you've got no break from that. And actually that's when it becomes, you don't sleep as well. You start thinking more about work, and actually you come to kind of get quite frustrated with it, because you're not getting that break. So I think, some of the things we've tried to do is encourage people to take a break during the day. There's just little things like, get up, move around, take a walk. That's something we've tried to encourage now. Now people can obviously are back out walking again, get some sort of fresh air, and kind of keep that distance, that healthy distance from work, because it can be all consuming if you're locked away. And as we were in the first couple of months of lockdown, kind of, locked away in that one room, that cell almost, if you like.
Yeah. And I think it's always difficult, almost separation as founders of the business. Our kind of time we work, the way we work, is probably going to be slightly different to the team naturally. But it's important we do try and lead by example. I think I had 3 days kind of annual leave recently over my birthday, and it's kind of Flinder didn't stop, the world didn't stop, because I took a few days off. And it's really important that the team see that and feel that, because if we don't take a break, are we not encouraging them to take breaks as well from work, using their annual leave, etc. And so I think it is important.
It's a good point, actually. If you do do something, you do take a break, you do have some time off, it's important to share that, and share that you've taken that time away, so that actually it's the tone at the top that filters through the business, so other people can feel that it's acceptable to do that. Because it's just, and of course it always is, but it's just harder to divide the two off, I guess. It's just that much more difficult, isn't it?
The other thing I was comment on, you said about people going out and walking and stuff, like when we did the probably right at the beginning of lockdown, when we did some time in people's day when they're doing some vlogging. It was really interesting to see how many of the team were out walking dogs, people kind of getting some fresh air, their daily exercise as it was at the time. It was really good to see, and actually that's what we always encourage. It doesn't need to be just because we're doing it on lockdown. It's probably good behaviours to carry on. When we're working out of kind of an office in London, you walk outside to go and get some lunch, or you do go out and get a bit of fresh air. You don't do that when you're working from home. I've not tried it. I'm not the biggest fan of walking myself, but I've seen people say that in the morning they will leave their front door, they'll walk around the block, walk back in, and because they then walk to work. And so kind of approaches like that is a way to break it up, albeit don't know any of the team that do that at the moment.
Oh, no, we do. We got Pip. I think Pip's done that.
Pip did, okay.
Yeah, I think she has it on her walk to work, or certainly did at the beginning. So yeah, really, really important. We've also got a fitness channel in our Slack group, which we try and have a bit of banter about who's doing what, and just try and encourage people and kind of get that blood pumping for people to do things and get a bit more active, I think. And then there's all the other stuff that we've just tried to like put on virtual, such as the manager meetings, the regular catch-ups, just to have a bit more kind of, personal touch, if you like, which is just very difficult at the moment, I guess, isn't it?
And the other thing I don't think we touched on is because of saving the commute time, actually, how do we use that time more efficiently? How do we kind of be smarter about that? Yeah, get some time back on our day, hopefully. But also we offered out to everyone about kind of some training as well, if they wanted to go away and find something they were interested in. If it was really tangible linked to work, obviously natural training that we'd want them to be doing anyway. But even if it was kind of a little bit one step removed, we're happy to support people and pay for that training as well. It's always a hard balance when we expect a lot from our team, that they're all working really hard. So it's that fine balance between it being seen as kind of almost another thing for them to add to their day versus actually self-development and pushing themselves to learn something new, which I think people should always be striving to do.
Well, that's what we absolutely look for in Flinder. It's one of our core values, is around kind of, pushing yourself forward and being entrepreneurial and kind of, really challenging yourself. So hugely important to us. I guess kind of from the people side of things, we've shifted a little bit to talk about lack of, not needing to travel. So obviously, we've not been in central London. We've not been at our office. One thing that we took as a decision very early on when we saw this happening was, actually, we don't think we're going to need an office for the next 3 to 6 months because of the way things are going. And so we were luckily in a prime position where we were a couple of days away from signing a new lease. And actually we took the decision, and a fortuitous timing, to not sign that and to exit our building. So that one, as a business owner, was saving us cash in a time when it was, a lot of business uncertainty, which was very, very important, and one we would advise to all our clients. But two, actually, you talk about this kind of, less amount of travel to the office, and giving the team opportunities to maybe learn something. Actually, it's given us a load of opportunities as a business, because we're not, I do a lot of talking to new business, talking to partners and networks. And actually, the time that I've saved both traveling in and out of London, the time I've saved, here, there, and everywhere on the tube or walking somewhere, that's actually amassed to a significant amount of time, which is quite eye-opening. We leverage technology a lot, and we do a lot of these anyway, these Zoom calls, when we were in an office. But actually, it's given me back, a good chunk of time. And so we've developed and really raced ahead with some of our strategic imperatives in using that time. So we're kind of well on the way in building that infrastructure for growth ahead of time, ahead of kind of, when we come out of lockdown. So that's been one huge advantage to us, and certainly me personally, in terms of my time, and everyone in the business will feel it and experience it. So that's been actually quite exciting. One of the things that we launched again for our team was the difference. And that took quite a big amount of time from you, me, and Dave, and other contributors in the business to get that up and running. Maybe, look, you want to give a couple of words around what the difference is and why it's so important to us?
Yeah, absolutely. But I didn't know we were going to talk about this, so put me on the spot.
No, me neither. So no, I just thought it flowed quite well in that we kind of found this additional time to accelerate some of these things, these strategic imperatives that were important to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the difference being in the way we see the journey, the development of our team and our people. And I think aptly named, because I like to think we're doing it differently to other firms, and we're not doing it in kind of so much of a traditional manner. We naturally have our values, the 5 values that we always kind of work to and try and build into everything we do. So the 3 key components of it, and I'm sure you'll jump in if I get any of these wrong.
Are you rapidly trying to find the diagram?
Yeah, I get it up on my laptop as we speak now. So we have our Flinder core values. Around that, we also then have wrapped what we're calling the competencies, which naturally we're aligning back to our values as well. So what we expect of people at different kind of experience, different grades. And then the 3rd key element of it is what we're referring to as the Flinder Academy going forward. So the training, the learning, the development that we have wrapped around that as well. So we've already touched on one aspect of it being kind of self-driven, in terms of what do you want to go and where you learn, what do you want to do, but also the L&D content that we're kind of building up more recently as well. So I think one of the struggle, not necessarily a struggle, one of the challenges you have when you're a smaller business is having content on training, and do you use an outsourced provider, do you do it in-house, and the one-to-many type approach. So we have 3 associates at the moment, so building content for them, hopefully, well, it will be reused for the next associates, so to say.
5 associates, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, in terms of the onshore team that we've started rolling this training out with. So we actually have 6 associates. Being accurate about it.
We have all this information on real-time dashboards, but we don't. We've got Zoom up at the moment. That's.
And so yeah, I think I started to digress a little bit, but that is one of the challenges around. We've got a great foundation for it now. We've got a really good model and framework. We're obviously not going to stand here and say we've got all of it kind of bottomed out to the nth degree, but it's stuff that needs to grow out and kind of develop. And the one thing that I think we probably don't give ourselves enough credit for is how far we've come along compared to actually businesses that are more mature in terms of length they've been in business. Some of the peers that we work closely with, and you know firsthand, their kind of feedback is that we're kind of a lot further along on some of these things than they are, which I think comes back from our kind of experience and time before at PwC, that if we're going to do something, we want to do it properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of the experience we've had at PwC in the kind of the development, the learning and development journey, you know, was absolutely second to none. And that's kind of where the DNA is come from, that, and the kind of the effort and the emphasis we place on the people agenda. So I think maybe we'll do another video sometime soon on the difference. And actually what might be quite good is if we bring someone in the team to talk about it and what they felt as it being different about working Flinder and adopting that. And that's obviously why it's called that.
The key bit, one other key bit I didn't kind of mention on there is around our skills framework as well. So one of the challenges again for us is our experiences before of what perhaps a senior associate would do, what they'd be responsible for, because we're delivering something completely different to perhaps a traditional assurance practice, or absolutely completely different to a traditional assurance practice, but even different to a typical management accountant that provide outsourced services. The way we deliver it, what exposure we give to the team is quite different to what people have seen when they've come in. So Dave, Emily, more recently have joined from other firms, and it's actually the way we do things is quite different. And the one thing we hadn't really written down and said to our team, this is what we expect of an associate, this is what we expect of a senior associate. And the immediate feedback we've had from people has been great with that, because they know exactly where they're working towards now. It makes us think that it took a long time for us to build this exercise for the reasons you said before, but it's kind of almost wish we could have prioritized it earlier on, because it would have kind of helped with their development, pushing them along.
Yeah. And it's interesting to say that, and for those that are kind of going through the journey like we have, or maybe a bit earlier on, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. You kind of build it just in time. It's kind of, you build it as you need it. If we'd have done all this on day one, then 18 months in, we'd have no clients, but we'd have a great infrastructure, right? And so, you know, it's a chicken and egg sometimes, isn't it? But I think, you know, nonetheless, it's huge for us, actually, the difference, and the people, the side of things is really what to concentrate on. You know, we do a lot of concentrating in terms of our propositions for our clients and how we're different in terms of what we deliver, but actually giving the team the clarity around the skills they need to deliver a different service and to work in a different organization is hugely important to us. So that's emphasis there. I'm still scratching my head on who the sixth associate is, but we can figure that. You can tell me offline.
Free onshore, free offshore, to make it easier to work out. But one of the things that kind of when we jumped onto the difference, you were talking about the time it is freed up for yourself in particular, from prospecting perspective, things like that. I think there's two kind of new norms, as I'd refer to them. One is going to be around the way we work in terms of physically, so and not just us at Flinder, but for all kind of growth and tech businesses. So there's kind of the physical location aspect of it, and then it is then the way we then engage and interact with our clients again, because I think people have come accustomed to using Zoom. They've had to use Zoom. So perhaps those clients where you're traveling 30-40 minutes for an hour meeting and traveling 30-40 minutes back, or you're meeting in the middle somewhere, they're all of a sudden saving this time as well. In the nicest way, I also find that the before and after, which is it's always nice in the pleasantries, but sometimes they were just time fillers. They weren't the most efficient use of time. Relationships are key, so we're obviously never going to go to a completely remote. We're never going to go just over Zoom. But actually, if we go to a client's board meeting once a quarter, the 2 months in between probably works really well for Zoom. Everyone gets back an hour in their day every time to avoid traveling and things like that, and make those meetings a bit more distinct. So I think they're kind of two things that will really kind of change the normality.
And that face-to-face, when you use the word distinct, but you could also use the word impactful. You know, you probably get more impact in that meeting and much more focus in the face-to-face meeting because it is face-to-face, and it's a different format, different forum. So I think, look, we're moving on to kind of like what the opportunities out there as we kind of hopefully come out of lockdown, and nobody knows when service businesses will move back into their offices. But the one of the key things is location model. Yeah. As a business 3 years ago, I think 3 years ago right now, we might have had one hot desk somewhere. And then, 2.5 years ago, we might have had a couple of hot desks. So we very much started our journey on being as lean as possible, leveraging kind of the modern working space, co-working space, hot desks, that sort of thing. There are a few different models that are popping up, and I think it's worthwhile talking about those and sharing what those look like. So we've exited an office at the moment, which we had a 20-person office based in central London. We've also got a couple of guys over in Belfast, and we've got obviously an offshore team out in India as well. In terms of kind of the core London-based team, we've moved out of there. When we move back into an office, we're going to go in a gradual transition phase. It's not going to be a big bang. It's not going to be get a 20-person office and put everyone in it 5 days a week when, the government says it's safe to do so. First of all, we'll decide when it's safe for us to do so. We'll decide when it's safe for our team, and we'll look at it from a health and safety perspective of traveling into London every day. We'll look at it from a business continuity perspective. We don't want one person being ill and then passing it to everybody. And we'll look at it from a client's needs perspective, and probably not in that order. It's obviously health and safety first. Maybe that was the first one I said. So largely that will be down to us. We'll probably drip feed it in. We'll probably we won't go big bang. We'll probably have a smaller office. We'll maybe rotate the teams on different days. We'll maybe get a team in or a whole team in for one day in a rented office space. For 1 day a week rather than having somewhere for 5 days a week. But there are a lot of different models that we're exploring, we've spoken to the team about. I think another one worth kind of picking up and sharing is the near working model, which we've adopted for one of our team members, that maybe wasn't as easy to work at home as it has been for some others. So rather than them commuting into London and being in an environment, we've sourced somewhere that's near where they live, within walking distance, so it's much safer than being on public transport, but actually they're in the comfort of a hot desk, a good strong chair that's ergonomically designed, which is very, very important for health and safety. It's got a good desk, and it's clean and all these sorts of things, but actually giving them something they can use as a working environment that's healthy and safe, that promotes a health and safety environment better than maybe kind of working at home, but also not having the risk of traveling. And I think we'll probably see, we've actually got a client that does this, and we'll see more and more of these. I think this type of model, these kind of location models popping up that are hybrids, and people might work nearer where they live and then travel in much fewer.
I think it just comes back to flexibility again, and the options need to be flexible. Our space was absolutely fantastic, and I kind of missed it, and we had a kind of a good contractual agreement with them to start with as well, which kind of scaled it as we scaled. In hindsight, we didn't need that sort of size of space. We could have even a 12-person office would have probably been too big for the amount that we actually used it. So it's a lesson kind of learned for us, and I think we'll really learn and make sure we consider all the benefits next time around. But it just goes back to flexibility, and that's where you mentioned we have a client there. There's actually a co-working space. They're obviously suffering kind of really badly at the moment in terms of the number of businesses who are either can't afford to pay the rent, because don't forget, actually they're not getting the support from the government, and they've still got to pay their lease costs, etc. as well. So everyone's getting squeezed in this. So it is a really kind of tough market for them as a business, but also for the people that have rented space in there as well. And it is going to just shake up the way things are done going forward. I think it just comes back to that flexible ways of working again, because people realise they don't necessarily need as much fixed space going forward, or everyone's kind of almost scaled down. So hopefully the people in the middle aren't hit as much, because you have the bigger businesses who scale down and go into a flexible co-working space, and then you have the people that were in those spaces that need that sort of arrangement you mentioned. And for that team member, it's great that she has the choice. She can work at home a couple of days. She can go into this co-working space a few days a week as well. So it's what's fit for everyone, really.
Yeah, and we actually have a couple of co-working clients, actually, don't we? We've got one that's an inner city one, which is in London and in other cities, and then we've got one which is dotted on commuter belts, which and I believe that kind of coming out of this, they will, whilst it's really tough business at the moment for them, coming out of this, they stand to be in a really prime position, have good solid business models, with probably a huge influx of demand for kind of their service and what they're doing, because it's all around flexible consumption models. That's what I think the agility and the flexibility that the business that you're talking about, the businesses will want, and they afford that. And so they've really got that business model around flexible consumption nailed, which is great to see from our client perspective. Look, I'm conscious of time here, not to make this too long and a bit more bite-sized for people. My view is, it's horrendous what's happened, but if you look at the opportunities that we may have as businesses coming out of it, they're plentiful. There are plenty of opportunities for us. We've spent a lot of time on identifying new propositions and new marketing initiatives, built more infrastructure around kind of our processes, and we're building and developing new technologies at the moment as well. Really exciting for us, looking ahead when we come out of this. Maybe touch on a couple of clients that you've seen pivot and how they're looking ahead. That might be quite interesting to share one or two examples of those.
Yeah, and that's a really important point, is that for a lot of business, I think this time has almost forced them to refocus their business. Perhaps something, if they're honest, they should have already done before it. Office space was something that we were already considering our options of, and this kind of forced the issue for us and made us make the right decision, perhaps a little bit quicker than we would have. We've got a client who's online florist. Actually, people aren't going out with their friends drinking, going for a coffee with them. So a way to stay in touch with your friends and kind of show them gratitude, so to say, and make sure they're fine, sending them flowers. So actually for them, it's not been the end of the world, but it's how they harvest that and how they continue that going forward. But they've made a very quick decision to redeploy their tech. So fantastic tech platform that brings, so their marketplace as well, that brings the seller to the consumer. But they redeployed that for groceries. So they're doing some fantastic hampers, a bit more traditional shopping on there as well. I think there's things like fine cheeses, fine wines, stuff like that as well. So they took their core product, their core offering, and how do you just repurpose that for a very similar type approach? So they kind of pivoted very quickly and very well. So I think that's a
real, first of all, I know who you're talking about, obviously. There's entrepreneurial in the first right, because they've built a business, but even more so exhibiting those traits, once you're in a business, that kind of creator mentality rather than harvester mentality of, identifying where are the gaps now, where are the opportunities to seize the market and leverage the assets we've built and developed, and move from one vertical to another vertical. That's really entrepreneurial, and I love seeing that spirit in our clients. I think that's brilliant.
And another really good story to share. And I'll say who they are as well, because I'm sure they won't mind as well. So Joanna Dye, so Dyewear, they took the opportunity to show their support for NHS. So for them, being a retail business, naturally going to be very difficult during this time. Consumer spend is always going to be kind of a little bit tighter, and they focus on women's professional wear as well. So actually, people going into the office setting is a bad thing them not going into the office setting is a bad thing for them. But they took the opportunity to actually, every pair of trousers that was bought during the period of time, they donated a pair to the NHS, to the doctors, to the nurses as well. They more recently thought, right, how do we pivot? How do we kind of expand our brand? They're doing face masks as well, but again, they're doing every face mask that's bought, there's a certain element that's donated to the NHS again as well. So whilst it's a very tough time for them, and I'm sure they'll come out very strong at the back end of this, it's how do you carry on contributing? What is your purpose? And they've always had a very conscious effort to how they support well, how they support the economy, how they support the industry as well. And that's just their way of giving back when it's a very tough time for them. Could have been easy for them to shut up shop and say, right, we're not going to do any of this, but it's great that they've been able to give back during such a hard time.
Yeah, there are a couple of great stories, Luke, and lovely to hear. I think I would want to caveat everything, because we're typically, we're typically very optimistic. We're very, very bullish about kind of, the progression of the accountancy market, what we do with our clients. I also, hands up, being completely honest, we've had a client that went bust in this time, which arguably, well, sorry, not arguably, which was always going bust. It just accelerated that. And we lost a client as well in terms of, expectations completely different to the typical solution that we provide. And actually it wasn't ultimately a good fit for us. So I think, whilst we may paint a picture of complete optimism, that's the way we look, but being completely open and transparent, it's not plain sailing for anyone. And I think that's worthwhile saying and worthwhile sharing with people as well that may have had some struggles. If you're focused on hospitality as a niche, it's going to be a really, really tough time right now for you and for your clients. And so I think it's worthwhile kind of sharing that as well. But I think,
sorry to cut across you, it comes back to how you utilizing that time though. So for us, we went into this winning a few clients. So we went into coronavirus quite strong. Yeah, we have, as you mentioned, the client we've lost. We've had some where we've had support clients, we've had some decreases in revenue. But actually how we're now using that time is really important. So like some of the points you focused on before, how we put the difference in place has allowed us to accelerate some other things. From your chief dreamer perspective, it's obviously terrible because it knocks us back on our pipeline, it knocks us back on our growth plans, a number of clients, where we want to get to. But I'm seeing it as it is only a setback. We'll still get there. It will just take us a little bit longer. And it's important that we're using this time where things are perhaps a little bit more settled for the team to just go through those processes of actually, can we get our month ends a bit more efficient? Can we get on top of things, as opposed to perhaps always moving forward to the next thing? So whilst I would have preferred the former, that we continued growing, we continued bringing the clients in, we've got to look at it for what it is and make sure we're using this time wisely until we are back on that track. And it'll help us get back on track quicker if all these things are done properly as well.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's also fair to say that we brought two people on during coronavirus time.
Yeah.
We've got another person, Tom, starting in next week or the week after, 2 weeks time.
Yeah,
so that's also interesting to onboard people, and so a couple of our team members have never actually met anyone else in the team yet, which is after working for 3 months is quite a bizarre scenario, but nonetheless, yeah. So future, my view is a lot of optimism, and I think accountants and accounting firms can help their clients significantly more, and hopefully their clients and businesses will see the advantage of even more so of accountants and what they can bring. So I think, Luke, last words of wisdom to wrap up.
Yeah, it just goes back to, I think, what I was saying before. It's just utilising this time to think about how you are doing things, how you work perhaps in a slightly different way to what you did before. What is the new normal for you? How can you kind of work a little bit more flexibly? Benefits your team, it could benefit your business. We talked openly about kind of our cost base in terms of the office. That equates to a large number of clients for us. So actually that cost saving for us, has it helped us prevent the need to, lots of businesses are going to things like reduced salaries, 10%, 20% pay cuts across the team. It's probably helped us not have to implement measures like that as well. So really looking at your cost base and looking at this as an opportunity to change the way you do things, as opposed to a time to say, coronavirus, that the business has gone to pot because of it. It's utilising the time in the best way possible.
Yeah, and the better businesses will always succeed. The ones that were maybe had a deficiency somehow are probably accelerating it. So as you say, time to look at your business model, and to borrow a phrase from an old phone company, the future is bright.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I hope you enjoyed this video of flinderTalks, Alistair and Luke. If you did, please subscribe. Please give us a thumbs up. And let us know any of your feedback. And until next time, thanks very much.
Cheers all. Bye.